welcome to Lesson 14, Beat Your Sweet Tooth, a strategy to crush sugar cravings. So which foods do you find hard to stop eating? These foods I find hard to stop eating, especially chocolate, but pretzels too, because they're salty, they taste good, the texture is good. There's lots of reasons why pretzels are a popular food. So are these two maybe that you find hard to stop eating? The reason I call it risky is because I find it hard to stop eating them. So they're risky for me, and they were very risky for me before until I understood how I can still incorporate them into my diet. I have three categories. So low risk carbs. These are all still related to carbs. So which ones are carbs, but I don't have a chance of overeating them? So potatoes, sweet potatoes, and some vegetables have carbs in them. So all of those I could still keep in my diet and they weren't as risky. Now, if you classify potatoes as also potato chips, to me that's a processed food. It's in a snack category. But related to regular potatoes that I would have on my plate at a meal time, I wasn't tempted to overeat those, so those were low risk for me. The medium risk carbs for me, I had some chance of pushing the boundary and overeating them. Dairy, so pudding or flavored yogurt, tortillas, rice and pasta, fruit and juices and smoothies. These ones were sort of in the middle there, where some of the times I could overeat these, but they weren't something that I could just sit down and eat and eat and eat and eat. So these were like in the medium range. The very risky carbs for me that I had a high chance of overeating were desserts, breads, candy, and chocolate. I wasn't tempted to overeat the hard candies. It was the chewy ones, the ones that had that texture. So these were definitely ones that I had to address in order to tackle my weight loss problem. So which foods do you find that are hard to stop eating? What are the three categories of risky foods for you? So as you're understanding more about carbs and which foods have carbs in general, the lighter the color, the foods, the whites and the beige colors. So which ones are low risk carbs for you? And then which ones are medium risk carbs for you? And which ones are higher risk carbs for you? So in order to start to wean ourselves off of high carb foods, now that we're starting to identify our own risky foods, it helps us to wean off of them if we go from high carbs to medium carbs to lower carbs. So it's the idea of the high risk, medium risk, and low risk. So if you get a piece of paper, or you can make a spreadsheet, you make a list of the top 10 foods that you find hard to stop eating. And then think of a healthier alternative. And so also you can try to buy healthier options and start to replace these foods. Even if you just work on one new habit each week, by the end of 10 weeks, you will have 10 new habits. So going back to our topic on habits in that earlier lesson, changing what we eat, we can actually create new habits of eating different foods. What if we said, instead of candy, I'm going to have some fruit? So high risk to medium risk. What if I'm going to take something like juice, which was medium risk, and have zero carb, which is zero risk? What if I take chips, for instance, and I move to something that's 5 or less ingredients? So if you look on the ingredients list of chips, some chips have 15, 20 ingredients on them, which means they're higher processed foods. And then there's some chips that, like tortilla chips, they don't have as many ingredients. So maybe move from one down to the next level, and then eventually move from chips down to maybe vegetables. Another example would be go from the whole grain to the low carb snack, like veggies and dip. So maybe the potato chips to the tortilla chips, and then the tortilla chips to the whole grain tortilla chips, and then the whole grain tortilla chips to veggies and dips. Remember, you're wanting to lose weight. This is why you're on this journey. You're going to have to give up a few things. I had to give up a few things in order to reach my goal, in order to have the ultimate goal that I wanted. The temporary goal of saying I really want some pretzels, it wasn't as important as the long-term goal of saying I can give up most pretzels. Maybe I will have one pretzel with my meal, but I can give up most of the pretzels because of what my long-term goal is. So this is just a quick example of how to wean off high-carb snacks. So going from candy to a banana, going from chips to some nuts maybe. Instead of having a granola bar, maybe you can have some ingredients that would be on a charcuterie board, like cheeses and meats. This is just a simple example of how I weaned off of these other foods that I was used to eating. And it's a gradual process, and you might not be able to give up chips yet. Maybe it's going to be a month from now. but maybe you can give up the candy. And so you're going to give up the candy and replace it with something else that's lower in carbs, has more nutrition, has more fiber, and is going to fuel your body better. So this concept was very important when I was going low carb and learning about low carb. What I did was I went into my cupboards, I got some bags, I went into my fridge and my freezer, and I went and I looked and I saw how many foods were high carb. So everybody's kitchen cupboard looks different. So what was in my cupboard would be different than what was in your cupboard, and which foods in that cupboard were tempting to overeat. Ones that when I would see them, I would eat them. If there was food on the counter that I was tempted to overeat, I'm going to eat it. It's right there in front of me. So out of sight, out of mind. That phrase really helped me to say, once I don't see it, I don't think about it. So I went and I got bags, and I think I had 7 bagfuls of processed foods, foods that were in a box or a bag or a package that had nutrition labels on it. It was made in a factory. Foods that were tempting for me to overeat when I was trying to go low carb and I really wanted to lose the weight. I got the bags, I put everything in it, I put it in my storage room. It was hard. It was hard to see how many things in my cupboard were high carb foods and that were tempting me. I took all the flour and the sugar bags because I was a baker. I took the sugar, the flour, the oatmeal, the honey even. I put them all in bags and put them in my storage room. And at that point in time, I didn't know how long I'd keep it in my storage room. It was just like, I'm desperate. I can't stop. I can't stop thinking about baking, wanting to bake, wanting to eat these higher carb foods. And I have to tackle this. And I'll do whatever it takes kind of thing. So I put them in my storage room, and that really helped. I slowly weaned myself off of some of the things in the fridge and the freezer. I didn't throw anything out at the beginning. And so I used it up. I'd say, okay, I've got the flavored yogurt or something in the fridge. I'm going to use it up and I'm not going to buy any more. So some of it was a gradual process, but the stuff in the cupboards was a no-brainer. I could just get the bags, put it in the storage room. Now what happened was some of that stuff stayed in the storage room for months and months and months. And it got stale, and some of it expired, and some of it I gave away, and some of it I had to throw away. But I didn't actually want to bring it back into my cupboard because I had gotten used to eating low carb. I'd gotten used to not baking other than with almond flour, and I got used to not having those foods around. And that made it easier. Now, this is very, very hard for you if you live in a family, you're the main cook of the house, you've got a partner maybe, you've got kids and other family members around, and you're responsible to cook for them. And they like all the foods that you used to cook or that you used to bake, and those have high carbs in them. So this might be really challenging for you because you can't put it out of sight. My daughter lives with me, so there are some foods that are tempting to her and tempting to me. Some things are only tempting to her or not to me. She likes the chips, I like the chocolate. So we figured out a system where if she's tempted to overeat on certain foods, she'll bring it to me and say, Mom, take this out of my sight, put it somewhere so that I can't see it. So she has learned this technique as well, and it's working. So then she's not tempted. So for me, I've done that with her. At the beginning, when I was having some of those foods around and they were still in the house, I'd say, please keep this out of sight. I'm going to put this in your room because I can't see this anymore. It's too tempting for me. So that might work if you live with people. If you live alone, then it's a little bit easier because you can decide on your own where you're going to store it, lock it in a storage room, whatever it is, or give it away if it's something that's very risky on your high-risk food list. This is going to help you on your weight loss journey to help you get to your goal. Believe me, it really, really helps to do this. So this is just an overview of sort of what I was already talking about. So you keep the foods that you're usually tempted to overeat, keep them out of sight. Ask friends and family not to give you gifts of high-carb foods. That's a really important one. If you really are doing this and you're taking it seriously, you can say, please don't give me chocolates at Valentine's Day. Please don't give me candy at Halloween because I'm tempted to eat this. Help me out in this. And find somebody to be accountable to. Find a support network in this. I'm talking about that in a later lesson as well. But see if you can get some people on board to help you to say, yeah, what's your risky foods? These are my risky foods. Let's not go to a restaurant that has that or that's tempting. Let's not go to the ice cream shop this week because I really need to not have that risky food around. Notice when you're tempted to eat in secret. That's probably one of your high risky foods if you're tempted to eat it in secret. And I ate a lot of food in secret that nobody ever knew I ate, but people could see it because of the way my body looked when I was overweight and obese. People knew that I was eating something because they would see me when I was eating at the meal, and I wasn't eating a lot, but I would eat a lot in secret. And I was eating in secret from probably age 8 onwards. I ate a lot of stuff in secret. And I was ashamed of it. And I didn't know how to stop. And I just could not stop eating so much sugar. But don't feel shame if you're tempted to go back to those old eating habits. It's habits. It's things that you've been doing for a long time. And some of them we were told were healthy, or some of them we were told were good. We were supposed to do, such as that high-carb food pyramid. So we can't feel shame around something that was not our fault. So if you find yourself eating things that are tempting and that are high risky foods, and you find yourself doing that again, start again, take small steps every day towards your weight loss goal. It's okay to start over and over and over and over on this. It's okay. It's normal. And be very choosy about what you put in your grocery cart. This was really important also. It is related to the out of sight, out of mind. If it's not in my grocery cart, I'm not going to be putting it in my cupboard, and then I'm not going to be tempted to eat it. In 2005, we came back from Brazil. We were missionaries for 15 years, and 8.5 of those years we were in Brazil. When we came back, we bought a house and we had a TV, and I would watch a show on TV where this lady would go into people's houses and she would talk to them about what they ate during a week. And then they would come back and she had a big table and she'd put all of the things that they had eaten over the week. And every time when they'd come in the room, their jaw dropped and they were shocked and realized how much food they had eaten. For some reason, brownies were the one thing that I imagined myself being on that TV show and the lady saying, over your lifetime, how many brownies have you eaten? And it would have filled up the room many, many times. That was just a visual thing for me that helped me realize I've had enough brownies in my lifetime. That was one of my really risky foods. If I made brownies and everyone in the family had a few, they wouldn't know I'd finished the rest of the container. I could make another batch and they wouldn't know. And so brownies was definitely one of those things that I realized I might never have another brownie again, but that is worth it if I want to reach my goal weight and not keep yo-yo dieting. Having this mental image of a room full of brownies and all the brownies I had eaten over more than 50 years, another little tiny piece of a puzzle that helped me and reminded me. Now I have had a few brownies, probably 5 brownies in the last 2 years, so it's not completely off my list because I don't want to feel like I'm deprived. But I'll try to just have a few bites, maybe 2 bites, and then I give it to whoever I'm with and they can have the rest of it. Or if I'm at a restaurant, we have a brownie, I'll have 2 bites. So it's not completely eliminating it, but it did help at the beginning to realize, okay, I might never have a brownie again. I don't know if I'm going to reach my goal weight. This was when I was still losing. I don't know if I'm going to reach my goal weight, but I'm willing to give up brownies if it means I can reach my goal weight and I don't have to be yo-yo dieting anymore. I don't have to have my mind so occupied with dieting. That might help you. Maybe you can think of a food, your most risky food that you just can't stop eating, and imagine how much of that food you have eaten over your lifetime. A way to snack no more is remember the less carbs and sugar you eat, the easier it will be to do intermittent fasting. Because when you are trying to intermittent fast and not have anything, if you eat a lot of sugar when you do eat, you're going to be craving that sugar. You're going to get the sugar high and the sugar low. So intermittent fasting is way easier when you eat less sugar. This was very true for me when I was going low carb and trying the intermittent fasting. It got so much easier to do intermittent fasting as I slowly took away those high carb foods. So this is just a reminder. I recommend doing them together. It will make both of them easier. So bonus 13 is the next bonus, the risky foods checklist, taking control of your eating habits. So I have an explanation here, and I also have the examples of my risky foods. So they're just examples, but maybe they will help you when you are compiling your own list. I also talk in here about out of sight, out of mind, and just more explanation about this risky foods. And then I've given you something you can download, the color version and the grayscale version. And these are the categories where there's low risk foods, medium risk foods, and high risk foods. And these are the ones that you're tempted to, you just can't stop eating. So you can print this out and just think about these things and maybe keep it on your kitchen counter for a couple days and just be aware of the foods that are more tempting to eat and less tempting to eat. So these are just related to carbs. So just think about the carbs and what you've been learning about and just write those ones down. What does a sewing machine and a quilt have to do with weight loss? I'll be talking about this in the next lesson, so hope to see you there.